Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our residents, our candidates, and to our community. We would like to welcome you to Durham Christian Homes. I am going to announce all of our candidates, and then I will pass the microphone over to our moderator. So we have the Green Party, Craig Cameron. New Democratic Party, Trish McCullough. Our Liberal Party, Selena Caesar Chavan. Pat Perkins with our Conservative Party, John Turmel, Independent, and Josh Borenstein, Independent. And our resident and moderator, Frederick Wind.
And a welcome to you all. I would like to just have a few general notes. The washrooms are through that door, and then you hang a bit of a left and you'll walk into the big cement pillar, and then on either side are the washrooms. On the right side, your women, on the left side for the men. Emergency exits, one over here, one over there, and of course that one. So, having done that, the reasons for this by-election is well known. We have mourned the loss of our previous member, Jim Flaherty, and pay tribute to his legacy, especially as finance minister and as pillar of financial stability through the global financial crisis of 2008 to 2012. His leadership not only helped Canada, but was felt throughout the G12 and yes, throughout the world. Now the Prime Minister has called for a replacement member, so let us move forward. The rules of engagement today: each candidate will be given 5 minutes to make their opening statement, to make themselves known to us, and to outline their platform. After 4.5 minutes, if they're still speaking, I'll stand up, and after 30 seconds, I'll sit down, which means that's the end of your time. This will be followed by a question period, questions from me and from the audience, and of course your responses. When you're asking a question, please specify to which candidate you're addressing the question. At the conclusion, all candidates will be given 1 minute to convince us why we should vote for them. So let us begin. And I'd like to start with Craig Cameron.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for organizing this and inviting us all to be here this morning. It is a privilege to be here this morning. My opening statement is going to begin with stating who I am. I am a father, a husband that lives in the Whitby riding. I've resided in Durham region for 15 years. Last 10 years in Whitby, just down the road from here, so it was a quick hop to get here. I am the son of the first generation son of Scottish immigrants who came here in the 50s, and I'm the only actual son of 4 boys that were born in Canada. So I have that unique Canadian experience, which we grew up as I guess at that time what would be considered a lower middle class. My parents came here and struggled to get ahead, and when I was 7 years old, I remember it was a momentous occasion because my parents were able to get a mortgage on a house, and that took them their whole lives to finally own that house, and that was their pride and joy. So my experience as a Canadian is something I just wanted to quickly share with you. I get a lot of questions, seeing as I am the new kid in town, so to speak. This is my first run at elected office, and why have I been attracted to the Green Party? Why am I doing this? I think for me the number one reason is I have been a voter all my life, and I have slowly been disconnected from the other main political parties, and I haven't really found my voice. And I found that other people that I was speaking with felt similarly, and they decided that encouraged me to step forward and put myself out there to stand for something that I truly believe in, which are the foundations of cooperation, transparency, and true constituent representation. So I was pleased and encouraged when I heard that recently over 30% Canadians are actually now considering voting for the Green Party, which gives us a sense of optimism and hope for the future. Another reason why I joined this is that I've seen the flavor of politics over my 46 years here change. The dynamic is not the compassionate, cooperative type of engagement that I was used to. I'm now seeing more us versus them, and plays for power rather than what's better for the constituents of a particular riding and the country as a whole. This has saddened me, quite frankly, the harshness of it and the direction that we have taken. And I don't think myself, and knowing people that I know, that this is truly what Canadians stand for. I see us having a strong history that's proud in terms of our engagement as peacekeepers, and that's the type of environment that I grew up with. When I grew up, we did have the 3 R's, which probably meant reading, arithmetic, and writing. But also when I was in my high school years, we had the other 3 R's, which was the reduce, reuse, and recycle. And I'd like to think over the years, and including with my young family now, I've done my bit, so to speak. But I've watched the responsibility of other large organizations, including our government, sort of shirk the responsibility on the environmental front. So I'm here also to say that the Greens are not a one-issue party. I have discovered that, and I'd like to share that with the constituents of the Whitby-Oshawa riding. I am, frankly, a little tired of hearing the myth that we cannot have a strong economy whilst maintaining our precious environment. I think recent reports and news articles and research has clearly demonstrated that this is not the case. And I think good old Economics 101 says that we have an obligation to move forward with a strong environment and a strong economy. So I again thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. I'd like to call on Trish McAuliffe.
Good morning and welcome all of you as we are approaching an important decision here on Monday. It's so nice to be with you and share our interest in our community and share our political interest as we talk about the issues and within this forum. I'd like to first off say that I know I've met many of you firsthand, whether in the community or whether in the previous federal by-election. As a candidate, I've been able to work steadily in the community, representing seniors, talking about issues, important issues around health care. And I know throughout this forum we'll have those in-depth discussions. But first let me acknowledge that today we have the opportunity to discuss, in fact, why we will select one candidate over the other. Because, in fact, this is an opportunity to send Stephen Harper a message. We'll all wake up on Monday morning and know that we're electing a candidate that will reflect the voice that we need, a strong voice in our community. But we'll also wake up on Tuesday morning knowing that Stephen Harper is still the Prime Minister. And Tom Mulcair will still lead the government with the most unified opposition in a generation. But together we can send Stephen Harper a clear message. Whatever you think of the Conservatives, they have become a tired and hard-driven government. They rode into Ottawa on a promise to clean up Liberal corruption. But in fact, they've replaced Liberals with a corruption brand of their own. They've been found guilty of breaking election law in all 3 elections since 2006. They've promised to end the abuse of the Senate, but they filled it with their own fundraisers, partisans, and bagmen. They've forgotten the people who have elected them. And, in fact, we've seen things eliminated by people who have elected them. They've eliminated old age security benefits to 65 and 66-year-olds. They've begun to scrap the door-to-door mail delivery. They've been promising to cut billions in expected transfers to the provinces for health care. And in fact, we'll see a $36 billion shortfall across Canada, coincidentally, after the next federal election. And this is shameful. And of course, the cuts that they're making to our veterans. When you see a veterans group standing up and fighting against this government, you know they've gone way too far. These are just the beginning of how the Conservatives made it harder for those in need and to get government services that we need and we deserve as seniors and as our youth today. And where are they about helping people get back to work? I know, with 2 boys in university, how hard it is to scrape by paying university tuition and knowing that they have to struggle to get by, and my son working 2 part-time jobs while he continues his studies and tries to get on the honor rolls. I'm sure many of you share my worry and about our grandchildren and how, in fact, they will be able to afford life. And we understand today's generation will be a generation left behind. This is shameful. It's not like it used to be. A lot of you have made those comments to me. These are tough times. I know a lot of you have been through tough times. But you've also had a government, in fact, where you can fall back on and know they had your back. Whether it was the provisions of social services or infrastructure that was made affordable for you to get ahead in life. No, it's not like it used to be. It's pretty hard to get work these days without a university or college degree. I know myself, leaving post-secondary education, jobs were plentiful. We know that youth today, here in our own region, are at staggering 14% youth unemployment. This is a disgrace. Across Canada, the highest youth unemployment exists here in Durham. We know that history all too well, where our young are sitting in our basements playing hockey games on TVs or playing remote games on TVs. So, here we are right in our community, and we felt this pinch. We felt this pain and the impacts of the recession. We see hundreds or thousands, in fact, jobs left in the manufacturing sector. Since 2006, we've seen 15,000 jobs removed from our community. And then we saw hundreds more leave throughout this. For every 1 job lost in the manufacturing sector, 7 spin-off jobs have been eliminated as well. So the government is leaving us behind. And now is the time to send a message that we see things in a different way. It's time to send a message and elect an NDP representative to share your voice and concerns as with a strong, united opposition government that exists in Parliament today. Thank you.
That was the right time. Selena Caesar Chevan, the tutor.
Thank you very much, Frederick, and thank you to all of you for joining us here this morning. Thank you to my fellow candidates as well. My name is Selena Caesar Chevan, and I'm running to be your next Liberal MP for Whitby-Oshawa. And I will use this opportunity to introduce myself to you and to let you know a little bit about me and why I feel that I could be your next representative in Ottawa. I am a mom of 3. I've lived in Whitby for 8 years, and I'm a small business owner. I own a company called Resolve Research Solutions, Inc. It is a double award-winning company. It's a healthcare-based research management firm. And in the capacity as a business owner, I have worked on clinical trials for pharmaceutical companies and large epidemiology studies for governments. I've also been a research administrator for public and private organizations. Scholastically, I have a Bachelor of Science in Human Biology, an MBA in Healthcare Management, and an Executive MBA from the University of Toronto. And the reason why I give you this background is to build upon the fact that I have a strong business background, and that's coupled with a very strong understanding of how evidence, data, and research can be translated into policy. But most importantly, I think that over the last 10 years of my career, what I have been most proud of is having broad consultation, involving people and making sure that they understand the importance of research in particular on their healthcare decisions. And that was most prevalent for me in the last 4 years working on Canada's first ever national population health study of neurological conditions, in which I was co-chair I was co-chair working alongside Health Canada, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, as well as the Public Health Agency of Canada. Those weren't the only institutions involved. I think the consultative process also involved 24 charity organizations, which is a little different. I think it takes a little bit of innovation and ingenuity to move forward and to become a true leader as Canadians. And these 24 organizations included organizations across the neurological spectrum, Alzheimer's disease organizations, Alzheimer's Society of Canada, Parkinson's, Tourette's, and epilepsy, to name a few. And throughout this process, there were researchers, healthcare providers at the table, but there were also Canadians living with these conditions and their caregivers. And when you think about the importance of policy or legislation that comes in from Ottawa and at the end of the day washes up on my driveway and my neighbor's driveways and your driveways, I think it's important to have a say in how that consultation was developed. We ensured that individuals were involved in the initiation of the research, in the progress, and in the ultimate conclusions. But not just that, it was important for us to look at international standards and map them against our own in order to mitigate potential problems that could come up along the way. And it was to also create metrics and milestones to ensure that we were measuring success and we were accountable. And to say all this is to say that it is important when we are developing policy and looking at a future for our country, it is not just about pitting one against the other. It's important to have these broad-based conversations and to understand that experts at the table, along with Canadians at the table, make for better government. In closing, I just want to conclude by indicating that the reason why I would like to be your voice in Ottawa is because of the passion I have for evidence-informed policy, strong business background, and the importance of ensuring that I am actively listening to you and engaging you in a consultative process and being a strong voice for you in Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Pat Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Wynne. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in this wonderful facility. And I'd like to thank Fred for putting this all together for all of us to join for the debate. My name is Pat Perkins, and I'm the Conservative Party of Canada candidate. And most of you will know me as the Mayor of Whitby for the last 8 years, and as the Region of Durham Councillor for 9 years prior to that. Now, I retired as Mayor of Whitby when I was selected to be the Conservative Party candidate, and then I resigned my position as Mayor when the by-election was called. And there's two main reasons that I'm running in this by-election. As we know, Jim Flaherty represented us in Ottawa for the last 8 years. And during that time, he gave this riding the best representation we have ever had. His foresight and talent established him as a leader in the world of finance. His participation in partnerships with me at the municipal level was a great boon to this area. Some prime examples were the Brooklyn Community Center Library Senior Center and the expansion of Iroquois Park that has made it totally accessible for people with disabilities, the expansion of Highway 407 and the 407 West Link. And those are just to name a few things that this community has benefited by. It's his legacy of strong local representation that I wish to continue in Ottawa. My years of experience and my knowledge of how national policy affects local communities will be invaluable in helping form these policies. Now, the second main reason for standing for the position is that I believe wholeheartedly with the positions taken by our federal government. I believe that getting as many people in this country working at good, solid, well-paying jobs is critical. Pension income splitting for seniors is very valuable to all of those seniors on a fixed income. Increases in child care payments and tax credits allows parents, not the government, to decide on the best way to raise their children. And I believe that when people anywhere in the world are subjected to evil, Canadians will step up to the plate and defend those who cannot defend themselves. This is the Canadian way, and any Canada that would abandon these beliefs is not the Canada I know. It was the government of Stephen Harper and Jim Flaherty that brought this country through the worst global recession the world has ever seen with flying colors. And we are the envy of almost every other country in the world because of their efforts. Their ability not to react blindly to world events, their steadfast belief in the Canadian system and staying the course, saved us from the economic fate many countries have had to suffer. But what is it that the other parties are offering us? From the Liberal Party, I'm not hearing much, but I've heard no plan, no idea of costs, nothing concrete as to why I should trust a rookie politician with no experience to run this country. Just a promise to roll back all the tax breaks the Harper government has given all of us. Apparently, Mr. Trudeau thinks that he can spend your money better than you can. And from the NDP, I've not heard much more. They have a new national child care policy that they'd like to bring forward that's supposedly paid for by the federal government with no cost to you. Well, that's where information can be misleading. And I understand that they'll transfer the funding to the provinces to operate the plan. Therefore, a minimum, and I stress a minimum, of 20% will be put on the backs of the local property taxpayer because the federal government doesn't fund more than 80% of any program. I'd like to have the opportunity to discuss this further with you. We need the best possible representation Canada can get. And I hear the music. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. John Turmel.
Hi, well, I'm the infamous John Turmel, engineer in the Guinness Book of Records for having run in more elections than anyone else in history. 1997, there was a 41, same page as Her Majesty the Queen, longest reigning queen under royalty and government. But it didn't go to my head because in the American version, they put me on the same page as the world's biggest bagel. But the media have had a lot of fun. Super loser, fails again, my favorite. Because exactly 1 month after I lost to Sheila Copps in 1996, and I've been pushing starting up these Let's Time Bank systems, the Hamilton self-help group started up a Let's. So my mission was accomplished. I didn't have to get elected, and I don't need to get elected here. I just need to find one kid with a sharp brain to set it up for you. Now, why would they say world's richest pauper? Winner at the table, loser at the polls. Well, I was teaching assistant of Canada's only mathematics of gambling course at Carleton University for 4 years. After my degree in systems engineering, toughest science stream of all, grade 17 in science, 98 percentile math, 100% physics. So when I tell you I'm going to bet on something, watch your cash. Remember the movie Rounders, for those who play hold'em poker? The scene in the Taj Mahal, chandeliers and everything, where Matt Damon came in and said, "We don't play together, but when was the last time you ever saw one piranha eat another piranha?" Well, every little town's poker game got their professor, but I was known as the professor at that Taj Mahal. So, why am I taking all these losing gambles? What's so important? Fukushima. Remember Fukushima? A few days before the radiation plume hit BC, the Tories turned off the fallout detectors. March 25th. Don't check that. They didn't want to scare you. Now, if you do the math and you check the fraudulent statistics, baby deaths tripled. But they didn't want to scare you. You know, are your fish outside in your ponds dead? Your plants stopped growing? So a lot of funerals recently. The guy's sick a month ago and he's dead now. Scary stuff happening because we've been sucking in fallout for 3 years with no one warning us what to do. So I'm going to quickly tell you what you may want to do. YouTube for Cure All Fast, where I've done a series of videos on why starving yourself will make your healthy cells hunker down and cause your cancer cells to starve because they need exponential growth. Also, I'm leading Medical Marijuana Activist creates legal kits and floods federal courts, and I have over 300 people in federal courts wanting exemptions for marijuana, juice, and oil. They don't want the bud to get high. They want the oil to cure their cancers. And you better repeal that law fast because you're going to be needing juice and oil pretty quick too. And that takes volume. So, and of course my first guy died of cancer while the judge had stayed his action. And it still stayed and he's dead. Now, don't think I'm kidding. Back in 2003, I went on Parliament Hill with 7 pounds of marijuana to prove the law was dead, a life sentence worth. And I did make them drop 4,000 charges. And I only got sentenced to 100 hours community service playing my accordion in an old folks' home. My accordion saved me 3 times. 2 from gambling convictions and once from that marijuana. So what else can we do? Money reform. As long as we don't have the money to fund the decommissioning of nuclear and the cleanup, we're going to sit here, keep sucking it in and die faster than we should. Now, I advocate paying kids with bus tickets because Hong Kong paid their students for transit credits to do work. As a matter of fact, Sydney this year just installed bus ticket payouts for people for recycling. So don't tell me we can't use bus tickets for empty seats to do something useful. That's called community currency. When Argentina crashed in 2001 and in the 80s, provinces started up their own community currencies. The union said, you're not going to lay anybody off because you got no money. We'll take small denomination $10 bonds if we can use them to pay hydro, taxes, medical, and licenses. Now, if Ontario did that, wouldn't you take it? Well, 750 cities and states in Russia did that. Bond bucks. And I'll be explaining that. Future, all the financial problems that come up, I'm going to answer them with this local employment trading time bank software. Okay? That's how we actually generate the funds to save ourselves. So I'm Johnny Engineer Turmel. That's why I don't mind losing my 83rd time.
Thank you,
One
John.
time got called off. Didn't lose it.
Josh Gordon Steve.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this debate, and I'd like to say before I begin that it's an absolute honor to run in a riding that was represented by the Honourable Jim Flaherty. He honorably and patriotically served this country. Also, I'd like to thank Fred for moderating this debate and my fellow candidates for their participation. But Canada, unlike what you've been told, is in a actually very dire financial crisis. A lot of people don't know that federal government, the provinces, and the municipal governments are in over $4.1 trillion of debt. And another more important fact is, if you look at the Bank of Canada statistics, you'll see that the total money in existence, the total money supply, is less than $1.6 trillion. So hopefully, maybe one of the other candidates can explain to me how you can pay a debt that exceeds the amount of money in existence. It seems like a very difficult task to me, which is why the federal government and the provinces, what they're doing right now is they're borrowing new loans merely to pay back the interest on the old loans. Does that make sense? If you max out one credit card, are you going to go get another credit card to pay off the first, a second to pay off a third to pay off the second, a fourth to pay off the third? It's insane. We pay over $165 million a day on interest. $60 billion a year. Nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care.
Watch your mic, please.
Well, I have a solution to this problem. Okay, throughout the course of this debate, you'll hear a lot of people say, we can identify problems. We've got homelessness, unemployment, poverty, etc. We need representation. We need to have a dialogue. Great. Who could disagree? But what are you going to do? They can't do anything, because when you're paying $60 billion a year on interest, there's not much money to go around. And if you look at the total amount of money we borrow for goods and services, it's less than $55 billion. So if we only borrow $55 billion to spend on actual goods and services, then why are we, for the federal government alone, over $750 billion in debt? From $55 billion alone, we owe $750 billion. That's like you paid with your credit card to buy a chocolate bar for $1, and you end up owing $2 grand. That's insane. So here's what I'm going to do. From 1935 to 1974, the Bank of Canada issued direct interest-free loans directly to the federal government and the provinces. We had the lowest debt in the entire Western world, $20 billion. Now, so what I'm going to do is, we've still got time. What I'm going to do is go to the Bank of Canada, get a loan, pay off all interest-bearing debts, and then from there, payments go against principal. We've used direct capital injection into the infrastructure, education, healthcare, and get the economy stimulated. The next thing I want to talk about is foreign policy. What's the symbol associated with Remembrance Day? Lest we forget. Let us remember. But nobody seems to be remembering. Does anybody remember Afghanistan? Was that a success? It's a complete and utter hellhole. The Taliban is stronger than ever. It's a disaster over there. Our veterans, 10 suicides per month. But there's not enough money. We had to shut down the Veteran Affairs offices, didn't we? Not enough money. Money has to go to interest payments, doesn't it? Oh, what about Libya? Was that a good success? Everybody thinks that was great, right? Oh, the Libyan parliament had to flee the country because different terrorist factions have basically taken over. That wasn't good. So, if we don't remember what happened in Afghanistan, and we don't remember what happened in Libya, maybe we're going to repeat the same mistakes. And maybe intervening militarily with aggression against people that have not attacked us doesn't always work out and results in retaliation. And how about we take it from the horse's mouth? Osama bin Laden, what did he say? What was his strategy? His strategy was to provoke and entice Western powers to engage militarily in the Middle East. He knew that, number one, it would bankrupt the Western powers, and number two, it would destabilize the country, lead to collateral damage, further destabilize the region so that Islamic fascism would proliferate, leading to more extremism. That's what I'm against. I'll bring the troops home and mind your own business. Thank you.
I have a question for the female candidates on the panel. Once you enter the caucus of your party, this is when you have a meeting of all the members of your political party, how are you going to promote the welfare of and justice for women in Canada? In Canada, women continue to earn 20% less than their male peers for the same full-time work. they are more likely to be poor, and they do twice as much unpaid housework at home. And since 1980, over 1,000 Aboriginal women and girls have been murdered, and many others have disappeared. And each day, more than 8,000 women and children seek protection at the shelter. And internationally, we have just started our contribution to, together with another group of countries, to fight ISIS. Yet, one of the countries that is fighting alongside with us is Saudi Arabia. That's right. And Saudi Arabia still beheads many people. Some of them are even women who dare to drive a car. Could you please explain how you're going to work for the fate of the women once you're in Congress, starting with Trish?
Well, thank you, Fred. Those are very passionate issues that we all face, no matter where we are in the caucus of Parliament or across our great nation of Canada or across the globe. As a woman who has had a strong voice in a dynamic private sector union, in fact, representing 250,000 women across, or 250,000 people across Canada, as a leadership representative, an activist, woman who did plenty of leadership training, women's activist training. I understand the role of women mentors. I know that there are women mentors in our party and the caucus. I worked very closely with Peggy Nash, as she's the Vice President of the National Union of CAW. She has brought me along as a mentor and representative of women's rights, barriers that exist for women in our society, the inequality that exists, not only just in pay, but opportunities. I have had the pleasure of working on Aboriginal files and the isolation of women in Aboriginal communities with Peggy Nash, with Jean Crowder from our caucus. Shelters, women's shelters, we know are overcrowded today. We understand the funding that needs to come to women's shelters to support not just women's, but women's opportunities. When we see the Harper government cut funding from the federal level that affects provincial and municipalities as the downloading continues, we have to understand that we have to push back. We have to ask for our fair share, and that they have to take a responsibility to women's issues in our communities, and that can happen at the federal level. We have the representatives there that are voicing our concerns already, and I stand alongside of them. Human rights abuses, supporting the Charter of Rights, and knowing that, in fact, one of the leading agencies that have supported us in this endeavor was the Status of Women Canada, and in fact, Harper has cut that program. So those are things that we face, not only just here in our own communities, but from a national level, and this has to be addressed, no doubt, Fred.
Thank you, Trish. Selena.
Thank you for the question, Fred. I think that this question could have been posed to anyone on the panel, not just the women here, because I think that it is important that it's not just the women who are standing up for ourselves, but we are in an environment where everyone believes that there is equal and adequate opportunity for all at the table. That being said, this conversation about women in
Saudi Arabia.
not just Saudi Arabia, right here at this table, not being paid equally, not having representation appropriately, and to our missing and murdered women right here in this country. That is a conversation that needs to be had across all political spheres, from national to provincial to municipal. It is an inquest is absolutely necessary for our missing and murdered women. Supporting our charter, as a woman and as a woman of color, I think we all understand as women here that at one point in our history we were not considered persons, and there were women and men who made sure that that did not stay that way for a long time. And once we became persons, as a woman of color, I also understand that some people did not have rights. And again, it wasn't just the women at the table that decided how to fix the solution. It was everyone who decided how that was going to be fixed. So as a woman, I've always represented myself and my community well. As a business owner, I've done that. And I think that it is about continuing this conversation at all levels with everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
Thank you. I didn't mean to tie you up there, John. Appreciate the question. I think that what we're seeing, let's talk about it now in the Canadian borders first. What we're seeing in life in general is a breaking down of barriers. There have been many, many barriers, not just for women, but for people with accessibility problems and many other folk in the community. And barriers are systematically disappearing through the work of governments and Canadians and governments responding to the needs of Canadians and understanding the dynamics of change. Life is changing. There was a time when you were hired somewhere and you, as a woman, might not have been paid equitably. But there's pay equity legislation now. There's a Ministry of Labor that ensures fair labor practices across the board. And it doesn't matter if it's for women or if it's for visible minorities. There's legislation that governments have been actively pursuing equality and trying to make sure that the barriers are removed for many, many things. And they continue to. I know that Minister Kelly Leach has been working with the Aboriginal communities to find solutions, to look at opportunities, to find ways to deal with the many issues, not just the missing women, but many other issues with their young people in their communities that are into major substance abuse because they don't see a better life. And so barriers are there. There's no question. And when it comes to the international piece, ISIL is definitely a threat throughout the world, throughout the Christian world. And ISIL are doing atrocious things, things that are unspeakable to women and children. And our government has made a stand that when a country asks for assistance to fight what ISIL is doing in their country, that Canada will participate and help them. No matter whether it's Saudi Arabia or anywhere else, they want the help and they ask for it, then it is going to be provided by our country. Thank you.
Excuse me, with all due respect, I would like to have a minute to respond to that as well. As a man at the table, I think fairness, just for a moment. I think my fellow candidates agree. Would that be okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I did get a consensus with my fellow candidates that I think that as a man or a male, it would be incumbent upon me to speak to this issue as well. I work with young people within the university setting. 97% of assaults go unreported. We spend a lot of time trying to reach out to youth and educate our young people as to what is appropriate behavior. I think as far as the murdered and missing Aboriginal women, it's quite clear that we have a systemic problem and we need to have a national inquiry immediately as to what's going on. So that's the Green Party stance, and I subscribe to that same stance. Right now, I'm actively involved in Million Man March. I work at shelters. I help out. I donate my time as a musician to help out on these fronts. And I think it's incumbent as men to step forward and be a voice in the fight against violence against women. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I would just like to say that it may seem counterintuitive, but some experts say that legislation, equal pay legislation, actually has the reverse effect. If I'm a corporation, if I'm a corporation and the law says that if I hire a woman and she goes for pregnancy, has a pregnancy, I have to pay her. The corporation is less likely to hire the woman because the corporation doesn't want to have to pay that extra expense. So this legislation, in some instances, might have the reverse impact that it was intended to have. But that's a minor point. Also, here's what Homeland Security Director Jed Johnson said. The U.S. State Department and the FBI are unaware of any specific credible threat to the United States homeland from ISIL. Here's what the guy from the Pentagon said, John Kirby, Press Secretary, Rear Admiral. The Islamic State does not have the capacity to conduct a major attack on the United States homeland. So the threat is being over-exaggerated. There are 15,000 people driving Toyota trucks.
Well, I think the real reason is vulnerability, the situation you're in, due to poverty, okay? And now you remember earlier Josh was talking about letting government borrow from the Bank of Canada, pay all their interest-bearing debts, and after that they don't have to tax us to pay the principal. No more debt service. Wouldn't that be nice, debt service out of the budget?
Would you mind staying with the question?
Just because you can't stay with it doesn't mean I'm not getting there. Now, if the lets can work for governments, I want the lets to let those poor women open accounts too. So they have interest-free credit cards at the National Bank. And now if hubby's abusive, they got the credit to leave. So, empower women with credit. Interest-free credit was the answer I was leading to with that software he didn't get. Just before I got there.
Is there a question from the audience?
This is a question for Pat Perkins. Since you weren't at the health care round table for seniors the other night.
I wasn't either. I wasn't invited.
Well, this is not you. I'd like to know if you will stand opposed to the cuts that Prime Minister Harper's going to put in place starting the year 2016, which are going to affect our seniors now and our future kids. Because it's a crime what they're doing to our health care here in Canada.
Can you tell me what specific cuts the Prime Minister has said that he wants to do for seniors? That he's specifically giving health care cuts for seniors? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, for health care itself. You're running as a Conservative member, you should know all the policies. And what they put in the federal budget last year, they're cutting how much money they're going to be paying for the health report. You know the health report we have here in Canada? There's going to be, they haven't met with any provinces in the health report. And so what happens is that they put it in place in the last budget, they're going to be paying them less money. I think it's going to go down to about $35 billion, correct? That's going to be coming out of paying the provinces for health care. So what is your stance? What is your stance?
I'm trying very hard to find in there why you're only zeroing in on seniors. So
I never said seniors. I never said seniors.
Health care for seniors.
And our future kids.
I didn't hear that part, but thank you. Health care is probably, it's probably one of the most highly debated things in the community. I mean, what we've been doing here in our community is trying even to get a hospital. Because what we've got in the province of Ontario is a government that is supposed to deliver health care, and it is not doing it equitably throughout the communities. It is absolutely ignoring the health care needs outside of the major centres. And the people of this region have continually been underserved by the provincial government, who are the ones that deliver health care. Now, the financial distribution from the federal government to the provinces. It's significant money that it goes to the province, but when you've got provinces that are misspending money all over the place, putting up closed for business signs throughout the province of Ontario, forcing manufacturing out of the country, I think that the province of Ontario needs to do its share in being responsible for the money that they do get and distribute it properly, make it go where it should go in the first place. And, you know, that's when I will start talking about who else is investing in it, when the province of Ontario does its job.
This is to all candidates, and it's a good question that just occurred. It's good. Income splitting, Jim opposed it. The universality of healthcare, as CETA, is now being extended from 20 to 22 years for grant patents of pharmaceutical products. That's an additional $3 billion per year. The Health Accord has been walked away from, reducing it from 3% transfers, or from 6 to 3, which is yes, an additional $12 billion each year. Extension of old age security to 67 unilaterally while in Switzerland, and the death by 1,000 cuts of CBC. These are our most cherished and Canadian icons in our tapestry and our legacy. With these points in mind, what will you do to support our universality and affordability of health care, palliative care, CPP, the Canadian Pension Plan, and our public broadcaster and such quintessential institutions, foundations, and the very soul of our country? Thank you.
And that was about a 2-minute question. I'll go. Now, I'll start with Trish, and we'll work this way.
Thank you for that question. It's very loaded, because we know, in fact, the Conservative government has death by 1,000 cuts, and we can start with the social programs. When we start to cut social infrastructure to pay off the debt, we're going to see not only an erosion of opportunities, bricks and mortar opportunities in communities, provincially, municipally. Ideas like a healthcare facility, a hospital, certainly won't come to fruition. We can only look to the federal government in the election of Fantino in Vaughan, in fact, where the federal government sort of found millions of dollars to put an extension in a hospital in that region. But of course, in Jim Flaherty's own community, where we've been asking for a hospital for years and years and years, have been promised, that didn't come. So it's political wedge issues that our funding from the federal levels are playing with us here on the ground. We need to be aware of that. When we start cutting OAS and rolling back the age, when we start having opportunities for GIS supplements that people have to actually apply for, sometimes don't even know, we start to look at an increase in poverty. And then with the social cuts and policies, we know those are going to impact here at the municipal level. That's where the burden lies. And the NDP has position policies, a national strategy on healthcare, a national strategy on aging. Those are working documents. We're heads down, working hard as an opposition government. We're ready to put in place.
Thank you. Selena.
Thank you. I believe that the final output of the question was, how do we keep these treasures sacred? And if I could focus on the majority of people in this room at the moment, which is our senior population, it is about having those conversations. These are complex issues that are not supposed to be held in silos. They're all interconnected. And when we look at some of the individuals in this room, my grandmother, who recently was living with me, if we expand or increase the CPP such that individuals, seniors, can live with dignity and have affordability and quality of life, then that is one solution. But then when they have that, how are they then able to access to get access to timely and quality services at physicians' offices when there isn't a number of, the correct number of physicians to help to diagnose and to treat their conditions. There isn't enough long-term care facilities, which of course use less money than having them stay in hospital beds. And I commend this organization for having the foresight to recommend having the long-term care facility expansion on this property. Then you have to think about pharmacare and having affordable medications. So there are a number of different solutions that need to be in place in order to ensure that these sacred Canadian values are kept, because they have to be sustainable. If they're not sustainable, we won't have them for generations to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. When we have social programs, none of them are free. We know that. We've got to look after people. And we're hearing here today about the things that are being cut. Many things have changed. We have to have the proper distribution. I mean, if you don't realign things periodically, you see things just dysfunctional. And when we've got hospital systems that, I mean, when you bring in things like a limb, you create another level of bureaucracy, and you are paying individual hospital administrative staff huge amounts of money. And we need to see amalgamation of some of the services. We need to see some trimming of the service delivery, take away the fat on the service delivery, and actually put the money into patient care. And I think that that's what is happening now, is what needs to happen, and the delivery is at the provincial level. The long-term care facility that's been approved for here, the province isn't giving you the money to do. There's all sorts of things that are being tagged totally on the federal government. And, you know, when you've got a provincial government that shirks its responsibility and doesn't provide us with what we need, why is the federal government going to reinvest more money into a provincial government that is dysfunctional?
Thank you. John?
Yes, there are so many things we have to do to get this working. We need to do this, we have to do that, we have to do this. They've identified all the things that need to be done if only they had some money to do it. And they don't. And they won't. Now, again, how did Argentine hospitals manage to keep all their staff and provide maximum service? By the employees accepting government bonds instead of cash. Now, no one expects you to do that. And that's why you don't deserve the same service they did. Now, it takes a certain amount of brilliance, which the Argentines seem to possess, and which Canadians just don't seem to be able to stay with. A piece of paper that can pay your hydro, your taxes, your medical, your licenses. Nah, let's wait till we get a loan out of the banks by one of these parties. And we can tax you more to pay them interest as well. If Argentina, if we did the same, all the interest in the budget stays ours. You get it? If you ain't spending it on interest, we can spend it on us. Now, I know I'm a mathematical genius, and I don't expect you to stay with me. But how come the Argentines could figure it out and you guys can't? Check the voting results to appreciate how non-Argentine Canadians are.
Okay, so sir, a great question. But the problem is you only have an ever-decreasing amount of money. If you look at the budget, the third expense, and by the next election, it's going to be the second, overpassing healthcare, will be interest. Can you imagine that? Spending more on debt service than on healthcare? Maybe something's going on here. Maybe we should look into that. So you got a small pool of money. The majority has to go to interest. And so then it becomes a question of who gets the money. Is it healthcare? Maybe one party says cut it, give it to somebody else. Maybe CPC, cut it or give it to somebody else. It's always a decision of what you do with an ever decreasing amount of money. And it's not going to end up good. So what I say is we can use the Bank of Canada, 1954 Bank Act. Please read it. Subsection J and I. Eliminates the authority of the federal government to issue direct interest-free loans directly to the federal government and the province. But you say, no, this will cause inflation. No, as you increase the amount of money in circulation with commensurate collateral, if you increase the amount of money in circulation and at the same time increase the collateral through healthcare, hospitals, education, we'll have the CBC. And with the man with the excellent goatee, we'll have your healthcare for the seniors and for the future citizens, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred.
Great.
I'm one of those sandwich generation people where I have parents in their 80s and an 8-year-old son. I just recently experienced something that delivered to me at the ground level that we have a chronic crisis within our healthcare system. And that is my father ending up passing away within a hospital system which was not built to actually support him because there was a lack of long-term healthcare availability. I myself and many constituents that I speak to are very tired of hearing that the federal government is passing the buck. Whatever word you want to use, there's a million different ways you can frame it. This is a national health accord. That means it's a federal responsibility, and it means that they need to be accountable for how the dollars are delivered and how they're spent. As a representative for this riding, it would be my intention to follow up just in that fashion. How are the dollars getting spent? We can't keep passing the buck. I teach my 8-year-old son not to do that and take responsibility for his actions. I would expect the same from our government in this day and age. Thank you.
The next question is on the environment. The Government of Canada has committed itself to reduce the output of greenhouse gases by 17% in 2020 compared with the levels of 2005. Many analysts predict that at the present rate, Canada is not going to make this reduction. Even the Federal Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development, Julie Galfand, agrees with this assessment. What is your party proposing to do or to push for in order to do our part to save the planet? Let's start with Selina.
Thank you very much. As a mom who has a 10-year-old daughter who is a Earth Rangers ambassador, meaning that she has been raising funds for the spotted frog of Oregon for many, many years, I'm truly proud of her ability to do so. And when I think about the track record that Canada has had over the last little while in terms of our environment, it's frustrating and it's sad when we could hear that the U.S. and China are agreeing to reduce or to make reductions to their emissions, and Canada has been lagging behind. It's kind of disappointing that the top two emitters of greenhouse gas are working together and Canada still has its head in the sands on this issue. The Liberal Party of Canada will be committed to working with not only across our country but with others to ensure that we are meeting national standards when it comes to reducing the greenhouse emissions that are plaguing this world and future generations.
Thank you. Pat?
Thank you very much. And you've got a commitment for the 17% by 2020. And I would like to have the opportunity to work with the government to make that happen. I know that there's many things that communities throughout this country have partnered with to make this achievable. And we want to do a comparison with the U.S. and China. Perhaps China needs to look at its policy of putting up coal-fired generating plants at the rate of 1 or 2 a week throughout the country. I mean, that's causing more issues in greenhouse gases that are affecting us throughout the world than any amount of reduction here would even balance out with. So I would suspect that there are opportunities. There's a plan in place. Some experts are saying that it's not achievable in the 2020 time frame. I'm sure we can find other experts that would say something to the contrary. It's like everything when we talk about what started off as global warming and has morphed into climate change, we need some consistency of ideas with our scientists. They are at both ends of the spectrum. They haven't come together with solutions. You can't expect a politician to decide which one of these scientists is correct. The science community needs to land on what it is that we should be doing so that gives us the guidance.
Okay, so are there potential damages to our environment? Of course. Overfishing, deforestation, pollution, the oil sands is damaging the environment of Aboriginals. Very horrible. But take 5 minutes later tonight and go online and look at the internationally recognized satellite data of temperature. And you'll see from 1998, the temperature has actually been cooling. There was a court case in England by a professor named Michael Mann, and it was determined in a court of law, that he fraudulently massaged the data to hide the decline in temperature. But I support all of the Green Party's objectives. I want green energy, I want solar energy, I want wind, and through the Bank of Canada, direct capital injection, we will be able to achieve those energy feats. But has temperature been going up? Oh, it hasn't. So we don't need any expert. Just look at the temperature data from 1998. So I support clean energy, but not because the temperature's warming.
Well, actually, I think ClimateGate is one of the most incredible hoaxes now going on. Not only did the hockey stick break off in 1998, and I've got bets. I'd love to flash it in your face on the internet saying, I bet you now it's cooler than 98, so tell me about your lies. Guess what? The 1930s were hotter than it is now. I can bet it was hotter 80 years ago before there was any CO2. That's how stupid people thinking they can control climate with a trace gas really is. Now, you can trust me with my 100% in physics and my genius in math, or you can trust the politicians who say, we don't know which scientists got it right. Well, look at your damn thermometers. We're starting to freeze out there, setting records. How can you believe it's warming? 25,000 polar bears now, 5 times more than we were told there were at the time. Come on, do your homework and wise up. We don't need some carbon tax. We need more carbon. Plants want it.
Great.
Thank you, Fred. You'll forgive me if I'm a little astounded right now that we're actually having this conversation about climate change in the year 2014.
Thermometer expert.
It was quite clear that we have consensus not only within the research scientists within Canada who have been hushed up, and we also have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, also with multiple reports still coming out. And if for some reason that I can't fathom, and many other people, rational people that I speak with fathom, that this isn't a real phenomenon, I can't see any harm in us making a transition to a green economy.
I can't.
We have,
it's not green.
I think I've been respectful of you, so you could probably likewise, I'm sure. I think what's really encouraging for me now is that we have a discussion from all political spectrums, multi-partisan talk about the need to use economics as we apply to our moving forward with the government. with our environment. We have models of this in Germany where they've integrated sound economic practice with environmental conservatism. So this is good for us. It's good for business, and I think it's the future, and we need to catch the green shift. Thanks.
Bullshit.
Thank you. Trish?
Won't somebody ask this gentleman to leave? He's not respecting anybody in the room.
Hey, he's lying to us. He should leave. He's lying. He should leave.
John,
I object to
if you
lying in
don't,
public.
if you don't stop, I'm going to send you away.
No one else is going to lie. Come on.
Trish?
Yeah, all right. Let's pull this back together because, of course, climate change is, in fact, about global warming. We've had a policy of the NDP that was led up by Jack Layton and the NDP caucus. And, in fact, it was supported by the House. It was supported unanimously by the House. The Climate Change Act was a very hard-working document, a very thorough document, a detailed document. And that document was presented to the House, passed, but then in fact it was defeated in an unelected Senate. And we just have to think about who in fact is in the Senate and the powers that be within the conservative-dominated Senate. The Copenhagen Convention declared in fact that Canada was amongst the worst leading offenders when it came to greenhouse gas emissions. We've seen oil sands expansions. We've seen the scientists muzzled. So we have some raising concerns around global warming, raising concerns around what to do. Well, how can we find the solutions when we're muzzling the very fact of the people that are trying to uncover what's actually happening here, only to benefit the oil sands industry? We have to really challenge this.
Thank you. Time is moving on. We've been here for about an hour and 15 minutes. Are there any urgent questions? Simon. Sorry, my assistant left.
Yes, my name is Simon Mueller. I'm the board chair for Durham Christian Homes, this facility and the facilities in Bowmanville. And my question is this, and so I guess for all candidates, we have a policy or program in place around funding for affordable senior housing. And so, with the significant increase in the number of seniors that are expected in this country over the next number of years, what are you and what are your party going to do about ensuring there's affordable senior housing for all seniors, especially those in low incomes?
Thank you, Simon. And, affordable senior housing is extraordinarily important, and as you know, we've just completed one on Mary Street here in Whitby, and we have been actively involved in the region of Durham and doing a lot of work to try and bring seniors housing on stream. We do need federal and provincial partnerships to be with the local governments to make it all happen. Good things happen with partnerships, but you've got to have everybody at the table. I would certainly be very, very happy to take this issue forward, discuss it further with the federal government about what kind of partnerships that we might be able to accomplish to the benefit of seniors and affordable housing. But one of the impediments that we have is some of the other social policy that we're hearing about that people want increase in various things. The one I spoke of earlier today was the one where they want to see the national child care policy rolled out for all children on a wait list. So if that happens, the provincial government will, in fact, increase the cost of living in any of their housing, because, including the seniors' housing, because the taxation will be so high. And that would happen because the provincial government only invests 80% of the money when the money is given by the federal government, they only invest to the tune of 80% of any program, and the local municipalities have to pick up the additional 20%. And that would add costs to a building like this anywhere in Ontario. So we have to talk about the partnerships and what those partnerships are going to be and who is ultimately going to be paying, because it shouldn't be on your property taxes and raise your rent.
Thank you, Pat. Craig.
I think I'm still hearing a repetitive pattern of this is not my responsibility. And I think what I'm looking to do is bring to the federal level accountability for where these dollars are going. It's clear from even my own personal experience that we have to have a national housing strategy. There are some things that the Green Party would put forward, like a guaranteed annual income, making sure that we have sufficient investment in CPP, and ensuring that, that our seniors do get looked after. It can't, at this point, just be rhetoric. If we are going to work cooperatively, be transparent, and have true constituent representation across the spectrum, we do need to sit down at the table, and we do need to have conversations with provincial governments, municipal, and work locally to try to solve these problems, because there are seniors who are living in poverty, and frankly, for the service that they've given to our country, this is not acceptable. Thank you.
Yes, in fact, Bill C-400 was introduced by NDP MP Marie-Claude Morin. This document was put through the federal government, and in fact it addressed secure, adequate, accessible, and affordable housing for Canadians across the whole spectrum. Not just for people living in poverty, but to give people a hand up, not a hand out. Unfortunately, this bill was defeated by the Conservative government. And I'm hearing a resounding conversation from Pat talking about the mismanagement at the provincial level. In fact, Jim Flaherty was a proponent of more and more corporate tax cuts in the provincial government. When you continue to cut at the provincial level, you cannot deliver the services that you need. Somebody has to pay. More and more today, we're seeing the impact in municipalities because of that federal download to the province, to the municipalities. It's time to stand up for yourself and push back. So in my opportunities as an MP, that's what my voice will be about, is having those political conversations and asking for a fair share.
Thank you. In order for seniors to have adequate quality of life, we know now that 7 out of 10 caregivers are providing financial support to their parents or the aging population. And that is obviously going to have a ripple effect on how those individuals are then able to prepare for their own retirement. And national housing strategies, ensuring that there is adequate funding for CPP, and that allow seniors to have that quality of life, that support that they need when they get to their years of retirement. They have worked hard and they deserve it. But it's not just about having that sustainability and being able to live appropriately. They need to have quality health. The social determinants of health are such that people are able to live, work, and play in their communities, and do so with dignity. If we have access to a universal healthcare system, but our seniors cannot afford quality medications, then what is the entire strategy if it's not all encompass of the different moving parts?
Thank you. This is the end of the debate. We now
You forgot us.
I know.
Okay, so in Japan, they have the Furiyu Kipu time bank system, where people who contribute to the healthcare system a certain number of hours can call on those hours back. So 60% of the people in Japan belong to a time bank system called Furiyu Kipu. And if he thought he was going to deny me the chance to speak because he's got some grudge, he's wrong, isn't he? So, I just wanted to tell you how the Japanese are a bit brighter than you people are too. I wish you caught on. They can put in hours and then they can lose them. And Gee, you are undemocratic, sir. He wouldn't let me come till I showed up today. And I said, if you don't let me on, I make a fuss. Then he backed down. Okay? I'll pass off my flyer about Mr. Democracy here.
You are a bully.
He's the man who wouldn't let me speak, and I'm the bully. You're a bright boy, sir.
And you're not.
You're a really bright one, sir. He cuts me off, and I'm the bully.
It's over.
Get your glasses off, sir. They're not the right
It's
prescription.
over.
Number two.
By the way, I'm posting this at YouTube tonight, so our exchanges will be there for posterity. Me and the slow learners.
Very good.
Yes, sir. That's right. I'm a senior, still got my brains. I grow new brain cells with marijuana. Bet you don't.
Okay, excuse me. I would like to say that I believe all of the candidates here would like to thank Mr. Wynn for putting this together. Would like to thank we need to thank the residents for allowing us to come to their home. This is where these folks live. They've opened their doors. They've let us in to share with them the things that they want us to talk about. And all of us here should be thankful that they have done that and give us the opportunity that we have today. And I really don't want you to hit me at a third time. You got me twice, so you got to stop.
Have the opportunity, sir, to make my closing statement?
Yes.
Am I going to be denied mine? Are you going to deny me my closing statement? Hey,
Okay, yeah, so remember the thing that I said at the beginning of the debate?
The very first one? No, the very first one up. Higher, yes, we're going to do that. Okay, thank you.
Control, finally.
Josh,
Thank you.
you're closing 1 minute arguments.
Okay, thanks. So if you remember what I said at the beginning of the debate, the amount of money we owe exceeds the total amount of money in existence. So with respect to the gentleman's question, how are we going to pay for seniors' homes? We're not going to be able to unless we find additional resources. It's all. Okay, and I'm going to read you all a quote now. The Bank of Canada governor from 1939 in a parliamentary committee on banking in response to this question. Okay, here's the question. Will you tell me why a government with the power to create money should then give that power away to a private monopoly and then borrow that which the Parliament can create itself back at interest to the point of national bankruptcy? Here's his response. If the Parliament wants to change the form of operating the banking system, then certainly that is within the power of Parliament to do. So
Thank you,
what's wrong with
George.
you? Reform the banking system so you all have the money you want to do what you need to do.
Will you please turn down the second one?
Okay, my closing statement. I tried to bring community currencies to your attention. I tried to bring the health threat of the nuclear fallout to your attention. You know, the point is, the only good thing is you're the weakest generation. You guys not listening, you're going to pay for it more than anyone else. Okay? So you guys who are nearing the end ages with the weaker immune systems, you go ahead and laugh at John the Engineer's suggestions on how you can save yourselves from what's coming. Because you don't appreciate how nuclear fallout is destructive once it gets inside you. So, you ever heard the line about, I object, I don't agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it? Well, guess what? Tonight, we're officially excluded from tonight's debate. And I'm going to show up there tonight.
You're 1 minute. You're 1 minute to
And my point is, I'll ask the other candidates, but the other candidates say, let my opponent speak, moderators back down. And I want to know if they're going to stand up tonight and insist that Josh and I get on the show. And believe me, with a sharper audience, I don't get this kind of reaction. Actually, can be quite entertaining.
Good. Great, you're 1 minute wrap up.
Well, I'm slightly distracted here, forgive me. I guess my main message is that the Green Party is not a one-issue party. And I think it's been said before, in this by-election you have an opportunity to vote the way that you want. It's not going to change the current makeup of the government. But I think voting Green right now, presents a real opportunity to begin returning us to our sort of democratic roots, if you will, of fairness, social justice for all, true environmental stewardship. And again, the biggest thing for me is that constituent representation, and that you're not voting for a leader or a party. And sometimes we question whether that voice will have any sway on Parliament Hill because you're the lone voice. I just look to our leader, Elizabeth May, and the work she's done with over 15 town halls since 2011 in her riding, and her voice gets carried to the federal level, and she does have influence on policy, and I think that's important, so we have to start somewhere. So vote Green, please. Thanks.
Thank you all for this session this morning, and with all respect, I believe that we're all here for a unified opportunity to represent our community well. So with all due respect, I'd just like to say, beyond what's been said here today, let's all remember on November 18th, we're all going to wake up and Stephen Harper will still be the Prime Minister. But ask yourselves, what kind of message do you want to send him? Who's the best position to hold him to account? With the strong leadership of Tom Mulcair and the strong caucus represented in the House of Opposition, I am ready to join that team, united with a voice to represent our community on our healthcare concerns, our job issues, the decline of manufacturing. I have the lived experience, I have the passion, I've made the commitment, and I'm ready to serve you. Please vote for me, Trish McAuliffe, NDP Representative, Whitby-Oshawa, November 17th.
It's on.
Second one up.
It's good. It's good. I know I'm supposed to use this last minute to make an impassioned plea as to why you should vote for me as your candidate, but I'm going to say that we are all trying to do the same thing, each and every one of us at this table, and we just have different strategies and mechanisms for doing it. We might have different policies for doing it. But I would like to thank each and every one of you for allowing us the opportunity to stand or to sit in front of you and to voice that. This is why we live in this country. We live in this country because it's a democracy. And we are allowed to vote for those who we wish to represent us in government, and to not be disrespectful to other candidates at the table. I would like to ensure that I thank you for opening up your doors to having each and every one of us here today, and particularly myself representing the Liberal Party of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, why should you vote for me on November the 17th? I'm offering you a government with a proven track record of responsible fiscal management. That's the government I want to join for you. A government with a plan for the future of our country, one that we know the costs of. A seat at the table where decisions are being made, which absolutely no other candidate here can offer you. I've got 17 years of political experience in getting things done for the benefit of this community. And that is something that no other candidate can offer you. My proven track record of service to this community, and my wish and my will to work hard for each and every one of you and the issues that matter. So I please ask for your support on Monday. Thank you, and thank you for hosting us today.
Thank you, and that concludes the debate. Thank you for coming.
go. Got it.